most amazing artist. Today you're practicing your quotes for your 5th grade music performance. This is kind of like marketing, so you have some rules that you're going to follow. The first rule of the day is that each word can only be one color. So take one word that you want and pick which word you're going to be practicing with. And you're going to do it in pencil, but if you later want to choose marker to practice with, you can. Each word, only one color. I'm going to keep this here to remind you as you're working. The second thing is simple is better. So to keep your artwork simple, you're going to keep the same style. So look, this style right here has those little lines. If I start doing that with one of the words, I'm going to do that with all of the words. If I decide to do the bubbly letters that are like kind of soft edges, kind of like the Keith Haring arms, that's going to go through the whole entire quote. If I want to do the boxy ones or if I want to do the pointed ones, whichever one you choose, you want to keep the same style. And we'll practice these different styles so you can choose. Limited color. Sometimes limits focus your art. It's not so broad if you give yourself some limits on color. So maybe instead of doing all the colors of the rainbow, you pick like 4 or 3 or 5 colors that you want to focus, and then that becomes your brand color. So the limit of the color, that rule can really help you focus your creativity. Everybody say focus creativity. Simplicity and rules can help you focus your creativity. You don't want it to be busy either. So you're not going to be adding like a lot of pictures. You're not going to be adding like a lot of distractions. It's just going to basically be your words. If some of you have extra time, you might want to do like a really simple border with like dots or like lines around the edge, but it's not going to be like something that takes away from your picture. If you notice in art, sometimes people like over frame it, and then the frame becomes like a bigger deal than the actual art. Like that's what kind of the same type of thing. You don't want it to overpower your message. You want your message to be what it's all about. The third thing that we're going to practice today is filling the space. Space is an element of art. We've talked about that before. So I don't want my quote to be, just like up in the corner. I want to practice like separate. Oh, here's his quote. He did that kind of here. He filled the space. But when you fill the space, you also want to leave space between your words. So if you want to fill the space, but you want to leave space between words, I have a little trick for helping you do that. And we're going to get to that at the end. So these two I'm going to show you after I show you how to do some different styles. So go ahead and flip your paper over. Use pencil first, and then that way you can... Oh, it's okay. You don't have to write all the rules. The rules are just for you to see. Mona? All right, we're going to start with the word hope. In a second, I'm going to ask if you guys want to share some words with me. But the first thing I'm going to do is just write hope. You could do that in lowercase. If you do uppercase and lowercase, just like normal grammar, then you want to keep that through. If you keep uppercase in the beginning, then you should do uppercase the whole way through. So one simple way to make your letters interesting is you think about where you want to thicken the line. So maybe I want to thicken the line here, maybe I want to thicken it here, maybe I want to thicken it here. You can even write all the letters of the alphabet and then thicken it wherever you see fit. Maybe like the bottom of the E's, but not the top. That's kind of like your choice. You can play with it. Another thing you can do, here's the word hope again. I'm going to do it 3 times, and I'm going to show you 3 different styles you can choose. One is those little letters. So you can put little letters. It's kind of like a 20 style. You can have all the dashes going the same direction, kind of like how I did, or you could have them going different directions like how I did there. I think when they go all the same direction, it looks better, but really you can choose how you want it to go. Oh, I didn't mean to do that one. That one I meant to do with the dots. So one option is you dot things. You can put little dots at the end, just like extending the letter with a little dot. Yeah, another thing you could do is you could add curls. So after you write the word, you could add some like curls. Just, you would have to leave extra space to do that. And maybe you don't do all of them. Like maybe O's and E's and vowels, you don't curl. But maybe some of like the letters that are a little more fancy, like R, N's, M's, T's, you curl those a little bit. Because you could curl a T like that. You could curl an M. You could curl, after you take an N and then add a little tail to it. And just give little monkey tails. So that's an option too that you could do. The next option I want to show you is when you were making bubble letters. So remember when we did Keith Haring and you did stick figures first? Does anybody have a word, a short word that you want me to use as the example? Sophie? Wish. Okay, so we're going to do wish. I'm going to write wish 3 times. One is going to be bubbly, one is going to be boxy, and one is going to be sharp. You could do more than this, but we're just going to stick with 3. And that way you can kind of pick which one you want. So just like with Keith Haring, you first drew a stick figure, and then you went around it. And I'm doing, just like Keith Haring, I'm doing these like U shapes. These very like soft U shapes. And I'm just making them all super bubbly. Then what you do is you take a marker and you trace it. You could trace it with black Sharpie. You could trace it with color. Remember, you're going to limit your color to keep it simple and focused. And then what did we do with Keith Haring with that stick figure? What did we do afterwards? We erased the pencil. And voila, you have your bubbles. Okay, maybe I want it to be sharp this time. So I want it to be like pointy, like this hope right here. So instead, I'm gonna just trace mine with marker. You trace yours with pencil and then trace over it. So I'm gonna do points. You can even add points the first way first, and then connect those points. You can add little points like this. You can add points on the ends of the S, and then connect it. That's how you can make things pointy, and then trace around it. And then you'll go in and erase. So maybe if you want it to look like a little more sharp for some reason, that you could do that. Okay, the next one I'm going to show you is the box. So the box is a straight line. Instead of being a bubble, like a U shape like this, instead of being sharp like this, it's going to be boxy like that. Lines are an element of art, so you're using these kind of lines to make your letters. So right here I'm putting that kind of line, and then I'm going to connect around it. Those kind of lines, and then connect around. Maybe do a box for the eyes instead. You could do boxy letters with circle dots. Line, line, and then trace around, line, 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 trace around, and then go ahead and erase the inside. You could color the insides, or you could leave them like that. It would be your choice. Another thing that you could do is if you wanted boxy, sometimes people like to do thin boxy letters, and some people like to do like more wide. So when you're writing it the first time, if you wanted it to be more long, you make it long and then you do the box around it. Or you could make it more wide and then do the box around that. So kind of decide. Make a decision about what your style is going to be. Then, this is how I fill the space. Remember, one talking? We want to fill the space, and then we want to leave space between words. So this is how I do it. I'm going to look at my quote that I had. Where's that Van Gogh quote? Well, I can't find it, so we'll do this one. This is, I am unbreakable. We'll do this one. If you quit once, it becomes a habit. Never quit. So, if is a small word. I'm just kind of making a line for it. You, maybe I want to do it more centered here. So, if you quit once, it becomes a habit, never quit. See, that's how, like, I kind of planned with just making lines. So I also want to make sure I leave enough space. So if I didn't leave enough space, I can erase and like extend it this way, erase, extend it this way. And then I'm just going to write the words and then work on making it stylized. So if your quotes always need to start with a capital. So even if that's not your style, here's just some stuff. Spelling and grammar matter. Okay, so I want to make sure that I remember that quotes start with capitals. If you, leaving lots of space so that my words will stick together and be clear, quit once, it, and there should be a comma here, it becomes a habit, period. And then never quit would go here. Now quotes can go in quotation marks, so I can put the quotation marks in before and after. Then I decide on my style. So maybe I want my style just to be the one where I make it thicker. So I'm just going to make it thicker in some spots. If you, and make it thicker here, quit once, and I can make it bigger. Like, look, I wanted to make it bigger, so I'm just going to ignore where I put the E, and I'm making it bigger. It becomes, and then I'm going to move this one over because I made that bigger, so I'm going to move this one and plan it. Even though I wrote it here for the plan, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking this would be better, so I can change it. Maybe I want habit to be under becomes, so I'm going to do habit under becomes and just move it over. And then never quit, maybe I want this one to be bigger. I have enough room to make it bigger, so I'm going to make it bigger. I can change things like this. Never quit, I want that to stand out. And then I go back and add my quotation marks. I'll erase all of that other stuff later, but I want to show you how another thing you can do, like with especially rounded letters, you can add a little bit of extra. So like right here on the once and on the C, I want to add a little bit of extra on this side. So look how that's going to look. If you see my rule posters, this is the style that I did in all of those. I went thinner and then I went thicker. I went thicker like in the middles, thicker here. If I was doing that on this Q, I could make it thicker on this part. Maybe thicker, thin, and then thick here. And kind of pick some places where you just want to make it a little bit thicker. And then go back around. I'm going to replay this video on quiet so you can re-watch and think about what kind of style you want. Just a reminder, here are the rules, okay? Each word, only one color. Simple is better. Same style, limited color, not busy. Fill the space. Leave space between the words and make sure that your spelling and grammar is correct, and I can help you with that if you need help.